introduced you to a concept that is completely and totally foreign to most people. And it's found in Ephesians chapter 5:21. And it says, submit one to another out of reverence for Christ. Now, you probably been wondering, why are the Christians so different than everybody else? Well, it has to do with the fact that we serve the Lord and we have a completely and totally different philosophy of life. And that's what I'm going to try to explain today. So, basically, and the best illustration of what I'm talking about is what happened in the upper room in the book of John and in the book of, well, basically the Gospels. And it was Jesus. He brings all his disciples together and they're all getting ready to get into the evening meal. And then Jesus does something that completely blows them away. And basically, what he did was he washed his disciples' feet. And you have Peter, who's totally offended because the simple fact is Jesus is actually their master. Jesus is their, they're his apprentice. They're his disciples. He's the guy that's supposed to be in charge, and he's washing their feet. It's because Jesus is trying to get a concept across to them. And Peter says, well, you can't wash my feet. And Jesus says, if I don't wash your feet, he says, you're not my disciple. And then Peter says, well, then why don't you just wash the rest of my hands and my head? I'll do that. Jesus says, no, it's all about servanthood. You see, in our world, it's basically step on whoever you have to get ahead. It's all about selfish ambition and covetousness. You can just see that in government. You can see it in the marketplace. It's everywhere. And so you come across someone who doesn't operate that way, and it absolutely separates your head from your shoulders. Basically, Jesus said, listen, it doesn't work the same way as in the world. The world is all about us. The world is all about our promotion. If you, for example, go and you are applying for a job, well, you're going to be competing with a whole bunch of other people. And so what you do is you emulate and you also express your gifts and the certain talents that you have and the skills that you have and the motives and the attitude that you have. And the whole purpose is, of course, to get the position. And then you have people who are over you, and they are either leaders or they are manipulators. And basically, you can tell the difference. If you have, for example, someone who is trying to promote themselves at the expense of others, you can actually have a very toxic work site. So it's important to realize that the kingdom of God works totally differently. The kingdom of God is about righteousness, peace, and joy. The kingdom of God is basically this way. If you want to be great in God's kingdom, you have to learn to be the servant of all. And if you want to be first, you first of all got to learn to be last. And I think that William Booth best expressed it when he was asked to put into one word what the Salvation Army was all about. And he said, others. And that's really what the kingdom of God is all about. It is about others. You put the needs of others before your own. Selfishness is basically diminished. And that is completely and totally foreign to what goes on in our world today. I mean, all you have to do is look at the political world, and you can see that everything is about me. It's all about what I can do and what you can do for me. I mean, we see an example of that every single day in the presidency of the United States. We see it in the prime ministership of Canada. And it's all about do what I say and serve me. And most of our politicians have forgotten it's not that they are serving themselves, though they seem to answer that way. It's about serving others. It's about having the right type of attitude. You see, When you have that servant type of attitude, then you recognize that people are important. Patch Adams, well, it was actually Robin Williams. In the movie Patch Adams, he's having that great big scene where, of course, they are deciding whether or not he's going to be a doctor, whether or not he's going to graduate. And in that speech, I love what he said. He says, it's not about, look at me. It's about what can I do for you? And he said this, if you invest in people, whether good or bad, guess what? You're going to come out a winner because you're investing in people. You're believing in people. You want to see people succeed. Actually, the kingdom of God is best described this way. You are applauding others, even at the expense of yourself, because you want to see others healed. You want to see others whole. You've been made healed. You've been healed. You've been whole. You've been turned from a victim into a victor. You've been turned from someone who's being overcome to an overcomer. You have been turned from someone who's been conquered into a conqueror, more than conqueror, in fact. And you've also been a person who has been defeated, but all of a sudden you become the undefeated. And it's all about, viewpoint. It's all about understanding what has been done for you, and you want to do the same for others. I mean, Jesus said the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And a little boy put it this way, do unto others before they do it before you. No, that's not it. It is about serving others. And I guarantee, absolutely guarantee that when you serve others, and you do it in reverence for Christ, when you understand the principles of love, it changes everything. All of a sudden, you're not caring about getting everything to yourself. You're not looking out for number one. Selfishness is absolutely destroyed when you have a servant attitude, because you want not only to succeed yourself, but you want to succeed with others as well. You see, there's a very important thing to remember, and that is whatever you sow, you are going to reap. If you reap to selfishness, you are sow to selfishness, you reap selfishness. If you sow anger, you reap anger. The way that you treat people, they are going to treat you. They're looking for someone who is different, because most people are self-absorbed. Most people are self-reliant. Most people are, of course, selfish. And so why should you be that way? Servanthood and the whole idea of love is, of course, breaking that and making you valuable to others. And really, that's what it's all about, being valuable to others. Aren't you going to be glad when people are glad that you came and not glad that you left? Think about that for a minute. And so it's so important to understand the whole concept of submission, the whole concept of value. That's what happens. When you value someone, you're going to be able and want to work with them. And part of that is putting your ego aside and saying, how can we make this work? And it's absolutely essential, especially with interpersonal relationships. And this is where marriages break down, because both people are trying to make their own way or get their own way, not recognizing that compromise and also teamwork is the secret of making a good marriage, making a good relationship, and making a good life. So this is why it's so foreign. And that's why Jesus says, if you want to be great in God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. And learn to be, last instead of first. Jesus used the illustration. He said there was a whole bunch of people coming to a banquet, and somebody sat down in a place of prominence, and the leader or the host said, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to be here. This is for the honored guests. And right in front of everybody, that person was humiliated. And the person who decided to take the low place, the host comes up and says, what are you doing down here? You are a place of honor. And they are elevated. You see the difference? So Jesus used that illustration. You don't want to be put down. So basically, allow yourself to take a lower position so that you can be elevated in due season. It's a little thought for you today. So I hope that this is giving you something to think about. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a little thought for you today. If you like what you're hearing, press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel.